Fitness family, welcome back to another episode of the True Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Conway, and I'm joined by Coach Chans Porter. Chans, we're back again, man. How you doing?
I got it. Good.
Good. We just wrapped up a previous episode, but we wanted to split these up because we thought the topics were specific enough that we wanted to deliver this as a resource so people could find it a little bit easier. But today we're just diving headlong and head first right into injuries. This is going to discuss a little bit of a topic that one of our athletes, his name is Richard, brought up in our community group that we have in the school app. You guys get added to that, get access to that private group once you participate either in a one-to-one coaching relationship or in one-to-many in regards to our training, all access in our training app. So if you hop in, that's some great incentive to be a part of a great and growing community where you can have some education and of course also some inspiration along your training journey where you get to ask us questions. And of course we post all this good stuff like learning topics and different things that are commonly brought up. But Richard said how to battle negative or positive mental attitude when being forced to scale during an injury or during recovery. I've found some struggle. I've had some great progress. I've hit great numbers since being with True, and I'm pumped about it. But then I all of a sudden need to change, and even my mindset tone goes down when I'm physically and mentally needing a push, but can't do the movements that I once was doing. So this is a tale as old as time, Chance. If you use your body, you're going to bang it up a little bit. You've been running and managing CrossFit Unknown since it's been 13 years, right?
Yep.
I'm going to get that number wrong periodically. But for 13 years, you've had a large group of people that you've overseen their development and their fitness. I'm sure you've seen a handful of injuries here and there. Equally, you've probably battled it with yourself. From an injury perspective, man, how do you keep people in the fight when they're banged up?
Yeah, well, the first thing is I think Kelly Starrett said it. I heard on a video once that he said, hey, when you have pain, doesn't mean that there's necessarily a problem. It just means that your body's not liking what it's going through, you know? So I think the first thing, especially as, people age, they're going to have to spend more time on, either movement quality or recovery.
Yep.
So part of that could be like, hey, if your shoulder hurts and your trap is super tight and the tricep is tight and all this stuff attaches into it and your chest is pulling you forward or whatever, like those problems need to be addressed. And it's weird. Like if you do mobility and you do blood flow work, like it starts feeling better. That's weird how that works. You should probably do that a little bit more, not just wait till it's injured, So I think that's the first thing. But the second thing to kind of think about is if you do have a problem, it's not the end of the world, right? Yeah, like generally that's usually the first problem is that, hey, my shoulder hurts. I'm never going to be able to snatch ever again. I can't do anything I love. I can't do handstand push-ups or handstand walking. And those were my favorite. And I'm just screwed. I should just quit. It's like, dude, it'll probably be like 4 to 6 weeks maybe, and you'll probably be back at it if you're smart. Now, if you're stupid and it feels good and in 2 weeks you try to do a max snatch, then yeah, you may have a bigger problem. So I think part of it is just realizing that like, hey, everyone has these things and it's okay. And if you're consistent, like we talk about, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks off of not snatching heavy is probably not going to ruin your entire fitness for the whole entire year. It's minimal.
Yep.
Especially, and this is what I tell people, if you've been training for 10 years, hey, I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years. I've been lifting weights this whole time and doing gymnastics. 5 weeks out of 10 years is nothing. Like it's nothing. You're not going to really lose much of anything, especially if you build a huge foundation. And I think sometimes wrapping people's head around it, like, hey, you've done this for 6 years. Like you will be fine, not doing anything overhead for 4 or 5 weeks. You will be okay, Yep. So I think part of that helps for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I think that, you're hitting a couple things is first, have an honest perception on what you're battling with or dealing with. Is it discomfort? Is it pain? Is it an injury? Or are you just hurt a little bit, right? Is it an achy joint? There's so many different questions that you have to ask an athlete. Like when you are hurt here, does it feel better after you warm up? And is it only painful at rest? Or does it get worse the more that you do a thing? Because then the way that we help rehab them and help them rebuild tissue and rebuild confidence in that movement pattern or specific modality, it's different, right? Because if it hurts, the more that you do it, you kind of stop doing the thing and they probably need to rest the joint. They can give other areas of their body some attention and other areas around the joint, and maybe even different. It's the same joint and different movement patterns. But then on the other hand, if it feels better the more that they do, gosh, we're probably dealing with some type of tendinopathy where we need to actually expose them to like some heavy loads under isometrics, or like heavy loads under eccentrically loaded, really, really slow tempo, super annoying for CrossFitters, stuff that can regenerate tissue and positions and make them strong. So then they can get back to all the uppy, downy, ballistic, jumpy, hoppy stuff that we love to do. Right. So I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people feel discomfort and pain and they're like, cool, I'm injured. I'm just not going to do anything. And it's like, nah, man, you got to get in there and talk to the coach, tell them what bothers you, when it bothers you, how it bothers you, 1 to 10, how it feels, 1 to 10, how it feels in bed, 1 to 10, how it feels when you take your first steps of the day. And then also how it feels in the gym. Does it get better and go away when you're in the gym? Because if that's the case, man, we can rock with this, and we just got to figure out how to like pinpoint it in a different way. That doesn't mean you don't need to stop squatting if your knee hurts, if it hurts less as you get warm, because that's a sign for us that you're fine. We probably just need to, strengthen some of that connective tissue. So I think that is very, very important that you led with that. The second thing that you brought up is like, cool, listen, it's not the end of the world. The longer you've been doing this, the more breadth of fitness that you've built, and you trust that. That was an extremely hard lesson for me to learn in this industry. I mean, and it's before this industry, man. This is me as a competitive athlete in the sport of football that I grew up playing my whole life. Like I would get hurt and have a setback, and I'd be like, man, this is it. Like I got 2 screws in my ankle my sophomore year when I was playing running back at Weber State, for example. And I was just like, okay, I don't know, like if a running back can come back from this type of injury. And it was hard for me a lot. But a lot of what I did, and I wish people would have like known more like they know now. And I know we always feel this way, but like what I needed someone to instill in confidence in me. Physically, I was doing all the things to get my body back, and it was like ready to rock. But I still had that doubt on making that one hard cut that I really relied on as a back to be successful. But it just wasn't the same when you got 2 screws in that thing. And so it was more of a psychological blockade for me. And I think that what we can do with our clients in the CrossFit gym and in the training space is to help them understand that it's probably a lesser impact on your overall fitness than you realize, and that it's going to be something that we build back into, but it will build back. Like our bodies are so resilient, it's crazy, and we will be able to build them back. How do they go about, like, look, if someone comes into your gym, Chans, and they've got a hurt knee that we know squatting isn't going to be good for them, what are things that you tell people, like, hey, you got a hurt knee, you can't squat, you can't lunge, you can't step up? What can they do for their lower body, or how can they keep themselves as fit as possible with that kind of limitation?
Yeah. So like I'll use a great example. Our games athlete, she went to the games doing muscle ups to her bicep at the games. Right. So can't do anything with that arm for, I don't know how long it's been since the games, but she still can't, right? She can't, she's barely cleared to do like 10, 15 pounds. So all we've been basically doing is we've just been like, hey, let's find what other goals do we want to try to get better at.
Yep.
Cool. And let's work on those. Like that'll come later. We're not going to do any gymnastic stuff. So what can we work on? All right, let's work on getting our legs stronger. Let's maybe work on our capacity on the bike a little bit. We can do stuff like that. So I think when you look at an injury, let's say I have, a leg injury. Cool. Well, I'm not that good at strict handstand push-ups. Sweet. What a time to get better at them. You get all this time now. You can't do any squatting. So let's do like a handstand push-up progression, or let's do some pressing strength or whatever. So I think sometimes, just because something is injured, you can find other things that are weak links that you can get better. And generally people will say that like, oh man, the injury actually made me better because I worked on something that was really a weakness for me. And since I couldn't squat and squatting was my favorite, I had to work on handstand push-ups and muscle ups. And then they made me super better. And then I came back and my squat was still good because I'd done it for so long,
Yep.
I think kind of switching your mindset to like, okay, I can't do this, but what can I do that would help me improve?
Right. Yeah. Finding a way in, right? Like that's a quote that I always use when I'm training youth athletes and even competitive CrossFitters, but it's like, find a way in, not a way out. And I think a lot of people use excuses, and injury is a primary driver for this, but they find an excuse. And this is the everyday affiliate member. So I'm calling out everybody that goes to an affiliate. You get a little injury and you're like, oh, coach, I need to pause my membership. I need to take some time off my body. No. This is the absolute worst time for you to do nothing. This is the absolute worst time for you to lose your accountability and using your body. In fact, when you're hurt, you need to show up more. And it's my job, and it's the coach's job, whoever's overseeing you, to find things for you to do that, yes, it's going to look and feel different than the class, but we got to get you back. We got to train the things that are weak and make them strong. We got to train at least the other body part as much as we can. Right. And so what I mean by that, is the the asymmetric body part. Like, so for example, if you hurt your right knee, well, we're going to train the left leg still, because our body's under this constant battle with trying to refine and create homeostasis. It wants to be balanced due to functionality and survival and all the things. So if we can build structure and tissue and resilience in the leg that's healthy still, it will help the comeback of that weak and injured leg.
It comes back like it takes half as long.
That's right. So we expedite the recovery process when we still train at least the one side. So you hurt one arm, train the other arm as best you can. You hurt one leg, train the other leg best you can. And all the while be incorporating as much fitness as you can. And you're going to get tired of ergs. You're going to get tired of using dumbbells instead of barbells. You're going to get tired of all the scaling things. But I'm going to tell you also where this is an opportunity, if you're growth minded enough to accept it, is that you learn how to scale and you learn how to be creative way more. And then when your world opens back up, it's bigger. Right. So instead of a barbell and a dumbbell and having coach always tell you what to do and like really, really relying on their tutelage or leadership, you'll just gain an understanding of like, oh my gosh, okay, I did these step ups instead of squatted that one time. You know, my back's bothering me a little bit. Maybe step ups work today. Like it will help appear in a valuable lesson in many, many other ways. So I think that that's a really, really, really big important thing for people to remember, is that getting hurt sucks. It really does, but it's a part of life. It's a part of being an athlete. You want to be an athlete. I'm going to tell you guys what, and I hope this inspires people, that I would rather you, and I think statistically it shows this very clearly, I'd rather you get hurt doing something like CrossFit than have the chronological illness or the chronic illness that exists from not doing something like CrossFit, right? Oh, so your knee's achy and your back hurts. That's okay. You can still probably go pick up your couch by yourself if you've been doing this for some time, and also still like get on the ground and get back up. Versus there are people who have such levels of chronic disease and don't travel through full ranges of motion and have no idea how to move their body through space, that they can't do those things. And they grow in old age and into decrepitude, and then they're dependent on other people to move them around. We're building at least a resiliency, even when we're a little banged up and even when we don't move super well. So I think that should be something that inspires people. Now, something that to me, Chance, is the hardest part to help athletes understand is that while they can trust rebuilding their fitness in something like the shoulders or the knees, they can't just start back up where they left off.
Right.
Have you had any issues with like, yo, you need to chill out a little bit? Or like, how do you guide people through that essentially recomp phase to get their body and muscle tone back so then they can express that fitness that they once had?
Usually it'll be like what do you want to call it? Progressive overload, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, and sometimes it depends on, it's either reps or, you know, load. But like, you know, let's say they snatch, they hurt it. Okay. Their one at max is 225. Cool. All right. Well, this workout calls for however many snatches. Let's just go 95. And you're doing a total of 60 reps. Cool. Let's just assess how that feels. Right. We did 60 reps this week, 95. Next week. Okay. Let's say we're snatching again. Let's do 95, but let's make it 80 reps. Mm-hmm. Let's throw a workout together. It's 80 reps. Whatever. Okay, still feels good. Okay, now let's go 115. And then we just lower the reps again, 115 at 50 reps or whatever. And then you kind of build it that way. And they may think it's like stupid. Like all they want to do is lift heavy, but you're like, dude, you're just doing a cross. It'll be fine. Like the strength is going to be there. You just want, the last thing you want is a strong freaking dude, doesn't snatch for 8 weeks. Dude's still going to be strong, pulls up and hits 90% of his max, but nothing is ready for it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I think sometimes those slow approaches, which is boring, right? Because you feel like, man, I feel good. I just want to test it, right? Which is the natural for everyone to want to do that. And I think sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it may just be a little bit too much too fast. So usually that's what I'll tell people is progressive overload, take it slow, and then we can kind of slowly work into it. And then, you know, as far as strength, we'll just work percentage or skill work or whatever the case may be, right? You can do complexes and keep it at a super light load and still get benefits from that, you know? So I think all that kind of, or, you know, hangs and positional work or whatever the case may be.
That's perfect. I think that's a great example. And I think this is also like that point where athletes really have to trust progression in this way. A lot of people who get into CrossFit without a thorough background in like sport development or like periodization or strength conditioning, they're just used to like what they think is random, right? They don't understand all the details that we put into it and how we intentionally vary things. It's not random at all. And even constant is a word, at least, you know, from the way that you and I do at Chan's is touchy in regards to where it belongs, because it's not constant. It's intentional, and sometimes it means it needs to be the same because the variance isn't. We're not ready for the variance yet, right? Like, so progressions and intention have to be trusted when you're coming back from an injury. And I use this saying, but it's like you can always add intensity. When you dose it too much, injury is just on the other side. Injury and burnout. So you can always add it. So as frustrating as it might be, especially if you're a high level performer, if you're someone who's achieved great things physically or at the CrossFit games, or you want to go to the CrossFit games and you're like, man, time is against me. I've got to rush. I've got to get ready. That urgency is probably the reason you got hurt in the first place. And so as hard as it is, you got to swallow that pill of humility and patience, and trust the process, because you would always rather be able to lean on the gas pedal more than have to hit the brakes in training. It's just a natural minimum source of things in life in general. It's like you'd rather leave a little space so you can lean into it and push harder than you have to pay the price of going too fast too soon. And I see it all too often, man. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I tell my clients all the time, man, I'm a bad athlete and I'm a great coach. And the reason that the two are like, I'm very stubborn, and I think it leans into some positivity and how to lead other people at times, and how to help them learn how to stand their ground and be disciplined in their own right. But then when I'm myself in the garage and I'm just throwing down and I'm like, I got 45 minutes. Yeah, it feels like a good day to max out my snatch. And my shoulder's kind of bothering me, right? Like, it's just like I'll make very idiotic choices if I'm left to my own demise because of that. It's the competitor in me. And so I do see that in other people. I know you're just as bad. You're just as bad in that way, bro. I get it. And I know it. We're peas in a pod. And I think that's important for coaches to be able to identify and talk people off the ledge. Sometimes you got to talk to them like they're a hardhead, of course, and be direct and aggressive. And then sometimes you got to like kind of listen to what they got to say, be patient with them, and then be like, listen, I know you want to do this, but this isn't wise. And we're going to end up back in this situation. And I don't want you going to see Dr. Smith for that shoulder scope again, or knee scope, or whatever it is that we're getting. We don't want those things. So I think that's really important from an emotional standpoint, man. If we're talking to a competitor, okay, and they're like getting ready for the quarterfinals, and let's say a week before the Open, this has happened to one of my athletes last year. About 2 weeks before the Open, she hurt her back, and not the strongest athlete in the field. So we strength trained pretty hard all the time for her, but the back was hurt. We had to lean into other methods of training, and it was really important for her to trust the process. Like, how do you manage athletes, or like, how would you give someone advice in that situation?
Yeah, well, I would probably say, from experience, the people that you get injured right before, it's probably one of two reasons. It's probably like you're like paranoid about getting injured that you almost play it so safe that then something like that happens, right?
Yeah.
And the second one could be that you're so stressed out that, like, sometimes I think, smarter than we think. And sometimes you're so stressed out that like the stress just causes this anxiety. And then because you're stressed out about the thing, it's going to make it so you don't have to do the thing that you're so stressed out about, So I think part of that is just like getting your emotions under control. And kind of what you said too, when I think of like, you talking about your ankle, people have this injury, and then right before the Open, they feel this flare up, and instantly it like plays in their head. And then it's like you're almost like training your body to be like, hey, well, anytime you feel this pain, you're going to get hurt here. So I'm just going to keep on that repeat because that's what you're telling me, So I think sometimes a lot of it is just like, hey, mentally, you need to clear the mind, and you get a clear head of what's going on here. Like, hey, you can get this under control. Maybe it means more mobility, less strength training for 2 weeks to get you healthy. Maybe it means, isometric holds or whatever the case may be, just to kind of maintain it. But like, it's not the end of the world, but if you're thinking that it's the end of the world, it's just going to delay the process.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I'll even say, and what you're describing is that you've got to trust, right? There's a huge element of trust, and this is hard, but for what I was mentioning with this athlete that hurt her back, she was forced to trust the process and all the things that we've built for the last 2 years. Because through the Open, if it was going to be a strength movement that got tested, it was going to be hard for her, right? Because first off, we had to change training because we couldn't really load her spine that much. She could still condition, and we had to be very selective. She couldn't even really row hard because her back was bothering her so much. So we were stuck on a bike. We had to heal her up, and then she was able to be a little bit more like fighting, like a fighting place with her back. Like the pain wasn't there. She could hinge, she could squat, she could do things, but we still hadn't introduced load for weeks. And this is a girl who's used to, we're sub-maximally loading her several times a week to get stronger. Always doing plyometrics, always getting explosive training, always working like overload in some way, band tension, whatever it is. And with that being said, all that taken away, it stripped her confidence. She was able to trust the process. She trusted the process through the open. She trusted the process through qualifications, made it to her first in-person semifinal this last year. Like, it was a crazy thing to watch, but it was a beautiful thing for me to see like what an athlete is capable of, even when they're not in this perfect training environment that's going to peak them perfectly, right? Like, you just dream this up. You're like, man, the first chance I get to go compete in person at a semifinal, boy, my training is going to have to be really perfect. My sleep's going to have to be dialed. My nutrition is going to have to be dialed. Like, it's all going to have to be here. Like, this sport's getting so competitive. No, every day you're stacking chips. And you just keep investing into the bank of yourself, right? Like, you're investing in this athlete, you're investing in your body. Something gets taken away. That's okay. It's only, like you mentioned, Chance, when we talk about 10 years compared to 5 weeks. Well, let's say we've accumulated 1,000 chips and we just lost 20 of those chips to this injury. Well, gosh, we still stacked. We still got 980 chips. We're gonna be all in with those 980, and we're gonna trust that, whether we feel prepared or not. We're gonna trust all the work that we've done in the buildup. So I think that's really hard because, again, I had to learn that the hard way. This ties into another training discussion that I think we could go down a huge rabbit hole with, where a lot of CrossFit athletes through their years, and they see what everyone else is doing, right? You see what everyone else is doing, and you want to do what everyone else is doing. Because you're like, oh man, I need to do that. Look at that thing. I need to do that. Oh, I need to do more of this, and I need to, right? Like, everybody's that way. I felt that way too in my early years. And what I had to learn is that I needed what I needed, and it was different than what everyone else needed. And it wasn't more. I didn't always need more. When I did more, guess what I got? I felt a little bit sluggish in my performances. Like, I never really felt like I was showing my true stuff. And then I got injured. And what I want athletes to be able to do is to trust the process, trust a good taper. Feeling rested is not feeling lazy. And when you're rested, you're not out of shape. People think that in our sport. And it's the same thing with injuries. You get injured, you get a setback, and you're like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to squat. I'm not going to, my knees, my legs, like, oh, I'm going to be flat. Like, you're going to surprise yourself because of the work that you do day in and day out. And then of course there's going to be some audibles we've got to change, but the psychological battle with injuries, man, I feel like we could talk about for hours because it's such a big deal and such something that we all have to navigate. Do you deal with, from an affiliate level, this is kind of where we'll start to wrap it up a little bit. I think we've talked about competitors a good bit. For the everyday athlete, Chance, if someone's hurt, how do you navigate that in a class setting? So like, if they come up to you, and it's like I said, it might be, we'll use an upper body injury for an example. Maybe it's a clean and jerk day and they're, it's their right shoulder's bothering them. What is a way that you navigate? Does a person typically come up at the start of class to let you know? Do you ask for injuries all the time at the whiteboard? Like, what are some ways that you navigate that as a leader of a community?
Yeah. So, I mean, they'll usually just come up and tell me. I kind of don't ask at the whiteboard. I mean, I guess I probably should, but I don't
think you need to. And I don't think you always should. And I say that because I think it would embarrass some people to always be like, hey, my knee.
I kind of don't. Yeah.
So I think that's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I kind of know people well enough to know that, like, okay, so-and-so's been banged up. Okay. I know this. So usually, I mean, it depends on what the injury is and who the person is, but generally I'll be like, okay, what is the stimulus of the workout? Okay. Clean and jerks are supposed to be heavy. We're doing, 3 rounds of 10. They're supposed to be heavy. We're going to go singles on them. Okay. They can't do a clean or a jerk. So what can they do? Okay. Well, what can I supplement it with? Something else that's heavy. Can they do a front squat out of a rack? Yes or no? Can they do a deadlift? Yes or no? Can they just do a dumbbell on the one side and make it heavy and we just double reps, you know? So I kind of look at stimulus first to kind of see. I try to keep the movement pattern as close as I can, but obviously it just depends on what it is too, Like if it's something in the shoulder, but they can just clean, all right, then we'll just take out the jerk and they can just do a clean and we should be fine, But if it anything with the clean or the jerk, then you kind of got to take it that way. So I try to do that. And usually they're cool with it, right? Because all they want to do is they want to get fit. And I just think, hey, if you're keeping the stimulus, we're good, right? Whether it's, I mean, the other thing that coaches can keep in mind is you want to know what they've done and what they're going to do. Meaning, two things. One, look at the week. Okay, well, we're deadlifting heavy on Thursday into Wednesday, so I probably shouldn't have them do a heavy deadlift in place of that because we're doing that. But number two would be sometimes, because you don't coach every class that this person goes to.
That's right.
So the thing that I do that is the easiest is they say, hey, I haven't been able to do snatches for 3 or 4 weeks. I got to do something else. Cool. What'd you do last time? Oh, well, coach so-and-so made me do the dumbbell. Cool. What'd you do the time before that? Oh, coach so-and-so made me do this. Cool. All right, let's do this one then. You've touched those two. Let's touch something a little bit different, and that just adds in that variance piece as well to where they're not just doing, oh, well, I'm pregnant and I can't do sit-ups, so let me just do this 10,000 times. Like
Right.
it's just boring for them,
Yep.
So sometimes, it's nice to mix it up and be like, all right, let's do something different. And maybe it might be not nearly as close as to the movement, but it just kind of adds a different, movement variation and still can hit the stimulus.
Yep. Man, I think that's a great answer. There's a lot of jewels there. We could probably have a separate podcast on scaling for classwork. But I thought that was awesome. And I think what you depicted there, if I could summarize it up, is you got to ask the right questions. What's the injury? What have they done before? What do they have to do tomorrow? And then you do your best to preserve the intended stimulus, man. It's the way we teach it at the level 1 kernel. It's the way that we ask about it in the level 3 testing process, right? Like, how would you continue to preserve the intended stimulus of the original workout? That's the goal. That's what you have to do as a coach. I think coaches that do it at a high level ask great questions. I think that athletes that experience good coaching especially from a remote perspective, but gosh, even with the athletes that I see once a week in person, when I'm coaching them on a regular basis, competitor or non-competitor alike, I ask a lot of questions, man, because, and I get this, I think, from a lot of my spiritual background and just scripture study stuff, but it's like the best lessons are the ones that you answer for yourself, right? Like, I can give anybody the tools. I can't give anyone the answer. I want them to have the tools so that they don't always need me around to have this answer. And a lot of times better questions are the ways to navigate those better answers for people. But man, I thought that was great. Hopefully this episode did a couple things for you guys. It highlighted how fitness is not a linear journey, right? It's just not, unfortunately. And if you train, the longer that you train, you will be injured. Our goal is to listen to our body. Our goal is to eat our humble pie when we're feeling something and not risk it, because it's typically not worth it unless you're in the heat of battle and competition. That's a different discussion. But in training, listen to your body, lean away from things that are creating discomfort, ask questions, and be willing to scale, because it's something that you'll constantly be doing throughout your career if you want to do this for a lifestyle. If you only want to be a flash in the pan, if you only want to hit your goals 1 or 2 years, then maybe you can do it that way. But if you want to stick around and do this thing for a while, it's not a linear journey. We'll all deal with injury, and you can continue to not just get better, or not just go back to the fitness that you once were. You do have the hope and the goal and the aspiration to continue to be a fitter version of yourself in just different aspects. So hopefully this brought you guys some value. Again, like we always wrap up the podcast, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube and listening to any audio version of your podcast source of choice, please hit us with some suggestions on some information that you'd like Chans and I to cover, some topics from within the CrossFit space, training, nutrition, mindset, whatever it might be. We're going to do our best to kind of serve you guys. If you're listening to this before December 13th and the signups are not closed already, get your butt signed up, especially if you're from the Southwest region of America or from Utah specifically. Get to our in-person open prep camp, which is happening December 13th. We're going to cover all things skills and drills to prepare you for the open and better prepare you to prepare for the quarterfinals and the things looming in the 2026 season. So thanks again, Chance. Appreciate your time, man, and all the knowledge and the value that you bring to the podcast. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next time. Keep rising.